Let's talk about the cannabis market in Canada for obvious reasons. I think you said on the call that the Canadian recreational market, the first nationally, federally legal, large-scale market opportunity, is just not quite, from my words here, sort of what you expected it to be. Why not?
Yeah, there's a number of things coming into play. The first one, and most importantly, there simply aren't enough stores. Provinces representing 60% of the Canadian population have only 10% of the stores, and so if there's nowhere to sell consumer products, then it's very difficult to have the type of revenues that everybody expected. But the positive news is that's an easy problem to fix. The governments have acknowledged they need more stores. We now have enough supply to allow them to do that, and hopefully we'll see that fix. And the second big thing is, of course, Cannabis 2.0 products. They're still not to market. In the next month, we'll see those products arrive in stores for the first time, and I think that will be another big opportunity to take a bite out of the illicit market and improve revenues for the entire sector.
Mark, just how much of a challenge is the illicit market? How much would prices, for example, have to come down to really compete in a meaningful way?
Yeah, I think there's a number of factors that go into taking on the illicit market, and at the end of the day, the size of prize is still there. There's still a $6 billion Canadian market when you convert the illicit market, and price is a small part, but I think it is just that. It is a small part. Today the number one issue is, if you live in Ontario, there is one store for every 600,000 people, and we need to see a lot more stores so people have access, right? Without access to a store, it doesn't really matter what the price is.
What is Cannabis 2.0? Can you tell our viewers, and why should they care?
Yeah, so the 1 year in, the Canadian government is allowing a next generation of products. So for us, that's products like cannabis beverages, cannabis chocolates, cannabis gummies, and if you look at, for example, cannabis beverages, there's a lot of reason to be excited. You can take a product, the cannabis product, put it in a form factor that consumers know. Put it, properly dosed so they can have a reliable experience, like beverage alcohol, and ultimately deliver, a great tasting product, with a great brand, with no calories and no hangovers. I think there's a lot to be excited about this next generation.
Now, you've talked about provincial buyers in the recreational channel right-sizing their inventory levels after a significant accumulation. Just how much inventory is out there, and how long is it going to take to burn off?
Yeah, I think we're seeing the end of that short-term phenomenon, right? Which was, we had a supply shortage, so provinces rightly, accumulated what they could, and now that, we're seeing enough supply in the market, they're right-sizing their inventory. So, consumers are still, buying at the till. You're seeing strong retail sales where there are stores, but that's not translating into provinces buying from producers like us in the same amount because they're working down their inventory. So I think that's a short-term thing, and long-term, all the fundamentals are still there, and we'll see, more normalized, wholesale sales into the provinces going forward.
So, Mark, given all of these different factors that we're talking about right now, what does that mean for the path to profitability for Canopy?
Yeah, we remain, committed to some of the long-term paths we've talked about, in terms of, being EBITDA positive in Canada in fiscal 2021, long-term, profitable in the next, 3 to 5 years. But what it does mean is, the short term, we're seeing a lot of headwinds. But, if we look at, our quarter, certainly we needed to take certain provisions to right size and address, inventory levels on soft gels and oils. But, overall, our, gross revenues were up 6% to $118 million. Our medical sales in Canada were up 8%. Our international sales were up 72%. Cannabis shipments were up 12%. Retail, same store sales up 17% and overall 24%. So, there's a lot of positive things out there, even in a quarter that is coming at a rough time for the cannabis sector.
Mark, lastly, I just want to get your thoughts on the lessons to be learned from legalization, recreational legalization in Canada. What's worked, what hasn't, as we in the U.S. continue to see this growing, move towards it, at least on a state level.
Yeah, there's a ton to be proud of, right? Despite the hiccups, despite everything I'm talking about, we have launched a federally legal system for recreational cannabis across the whole country. And companies like ours have stepped up, governments have stepped up, retailers have stepped up. So, there's a lot to be proud of. And I think, what we've seen, the biggest challenge is that, there were supply challenges at the start, which led, provinces to rightly, put constraints on the retail environment. And, now we just need to see those constraints come off. There is supply, and we need to see those stores open. And we'll see, I think, a lot of success over the next year.
And Mark, finally, how long are you going to be? You're interim CEO. Are you going to find a permanent replacement soon?
Yeah, we've been, in the middle of a search for the last several months. We're down to a few, extraordinary candidates, and we still remain hopeful to be announcing something in the next couple of weeks.